Hello, welcome to Constituent Marking with Fred Long on Proof Text. And I am Fred Long. I'm sitting outside in Arizona, and there are bird sounds and other sounds. So pardon me if that is a distraction. We're going to look at 1 Thessalonians 2:2. We just looked at 2:1, and this is continuing on from verse 1, obviously, and we see right away an Allah. Now, Allah marks correction, so I'm going to put a green box around that. I also see a ke, put a green box around that. I see a kathos. So we're just marking up all the connectors, and there they are. Those are all the connectors, Allah, ke, and kathos. And so, so Allah here is indicating a correction, and the correction is being made from the previous verse in that Paul has just said that our inroad to you has not occurred in vain, and now he's gonna talk about what did happen rather than it being in vain. He's gonna say, Allah pro pathontes ke ubristentes. Okay, but having suffered beforehand and ubristentes. So the first participle here, these are participles. These are circumstantial participles. We'll call them CPs, and they're pre-nuclear, which is providing a framework. They're going to be providing a framework right here. This is from pro pasco. It's a second aorist stem. So it's actually a masculine plural nominative ending, and the same with thentes, ubristentes, and that's also that, but it's ubristentes is actually an aorist passive participle, whereas this first one is an aorist active participle. So it's aorist passive from pro pasco, second aorist. So having suffered before and been hubrised. Now, what does hubris mean? Having been shown arrogance, having been treated arrogantly. So they were mistreated. People were expressing hubris against Paul and company, and so they suffered ahead of time, suffered before, and being maligned or shown hubris against. That's what he's saying here. That's providing a framework. And then he says, kathos idate, just as you know. Just as you know. So kathos, connector, put a box around it. Idate is from oida again, ida again, so it's second plural, meaning you know. And so there's we're starting to see like there's a repetition of you know. And so this is indicative of what's called narrative material rhetorically. This is a narratio, rhetorical narratio. Paul is in a narration mode, and we'll continue to reflect on it because he's going to be talking about his character, and it almost seems odd. It's like, boy, what's the problem with Paul? Why is he like bragging about himself? We were acted this way among you. You know this. Well, it's because he was run out of town, and it doesn't look good. The optics don't look good, and so he wants to clarify his behavior, because he doesn't want to be considered to be a charlatan, running around, street preacher, trying to make money off of people, making converts and preachers and that kind of stuff. Oh, hi, Mr. Hummingbird. So there's a great article by Bruce Winter on the entrance of orators. I forget the exact name of it, but you could message me or something like that. I'd be glad to give you that reference. But Bruce W. Winter, it's a great article explaining this kind of posturing. So he wants them to know. He wants them to know his character. So in Philippis is the next thing that we see. That's a prepositional phrase. And then we have the main verb. This is the main verb, eparesiasamitha. That has an augment on the front. I'm cutting that off. I'm single underlining it. So in Philippi, we preached boldly, or we spoke frankly. Paresiadzo me is a verb that means to be bold, like to speak boldly. And this idea of frankness, there's actually a treatise by Plutarch on frankness, parousia. And this idea of parousia it's interesting. So it has cultural circulation and value. And the book of Acts actually repeatedly shows that the first gospel preachers had it. They also spoke frankly. This shows up in John's gospel as well in an interesting way. Generally, I would say that this idea, it shows up in Ephesians too, this idea of speaking frankly or boldly, it is a gesture of integrity and friendship, like good friendship, to speak frankly, directly with people. It is a sign of courtesy, of friendship, because that's what friends do, right? They speak truthfully, frankly with one another. It's actually something to think about today. All right, so we spoke frankly in God, in our God. So ento theo amon. So the amon is the pronoun, genitive plural, first person pronoun, modifying in God. We spoke frankly in our God, or we dared to be frank. There we go. And so then the complement of this frankness, which is, it can mean to speak frankly by itself. And so then, but here we have a lalese. Now, lalese maybe could be understood with a slight purpose notion. Otherwise, so I just had a little question mark there. Otherwise, what it's doing, it's completing the meaning of we dared. But see, there's another word for dared, dolmao. So, tolmao. So it's, I'd want to look at this construction a little bit more. If this verb can stand alone by itself, then the presence of this infinitive is explaining kind of the goal of that frankness, namely to speak. We were frank in our God to speak to you, pros umas. And here the pros umas is, even though technically it's a prepositional phrase, I put it inside of parentheses. I also underline it because that's what you do with indirect objects. You underline them. So it's actually both. And so there is a bit of an elevation of marking because you didn't need this pros. You could have just had the umas, put that into the dative case, umin. So there's an elevation of marking for some kind of prominence effect or semantic effect of closeness. And that's what we've been seeing, is that he's speaking with you, to speak to you or with you about the content of the speaking is to evangelion to theou, the gospel of God in, and then the last thing we see there is en polo goni, in much struggle. The word there is from agon. It means to like a contest or competition or a struggle. So in much struggle. So we know that from the context. He's been suffering ahead of time. The framework that he provides by these participles here is one of suffering, of being mistreated arrogantly. And then despite that, what does Paul do despite that? Well, he is speaking frankly. He dares to speak frankly to them about the gospel of God. And this is all in the context of much affliction. So yeah, that's how I would translate and mark up this verse. I hope you found that helpful. and hope to have you watch and listen next time. Take care.